A tray hit the tile and shattered. "Cute costume, sweetheart." The tall man's voice cut through Crossroads Café's morning rush. He shoved a table aside and crowded Sage Whitmore against the counter. Chairs scraped. Someone laughed too loudly. No one moved. Sage, 34, blue server tee, flour on her knuckles, exhaled once and measured the room. 3 exits, 2 mirrors, 1 gun under a jacket. Admiral Reginald Maxwell watched from the doorway, amused. Testing. Sage's wrists loosened. Her shoulders settled into a posture she hadn't worn in 8 years. A thin scar kissed her collarbone when the neckline tugged. The scent of burnt espresso mixed with rain blowing in. Her fingers found a worn purple heart in her apron and the slim weight of a combat knife taped beneath the register. "Order up," she said softly. Silverware rattled. Outside, engines idled. In 12 minutes, Pine Valley would learn why Shadow never misses. Pine Valley woke to rain on tin roofs and the burr of generators along Main Street. Inside Crossroads Café, Sage Whitmore moved like a metronome. Filters swapped, griddle hissed, tickets pinned, exits mapped. She carried 34 years easily, the quiet kind that learns a room before the room learns her. Most folks saw a server who remembered decaf tolerances and preferred syrups. No one noticed the cadence under the skin. Thunder rolled low. Rain ticked the sign like Morse code. 8 years of hiding had turned routine into armor. She stocked the pastry case facing the street mirror so she could watch the door without watching the door. She bussed tables left-handed to keep her right free. She counted coins by sound alone. Beneath the register, electrical tape held a slim combat knife. In her apron, a worn purple heart pressed against her palm like a borrowed heartbeat. The town was her refuge. Timber trucks at 6:10, Simone Jefferson humming gospel while batter met iron, predictable, mercifully human. Then the convoy idled at the curb yesterday, and the illusion frayed. Admiral Reginald Maxwell's name didn't travel with him, but his posture did. Shoulders square, eyes cataloging, a smile that called itself polite while measuring leverage. He consulted for security consortiums. Sage heard the subtext: procurement, movement, deniability. Somewhere behind men like Maxwell, a renegade colonel was bleeding American arsenals into black markets. 8 years ago in Kandahar, Operation Iron Dagger, 2007, buried part of Sage under a blast-scarred wall and sealed the rest behind a new name. One partner vanished in the smoke, the file closed itself. Shadow survived. Sage learned to pour coffee. Engines throbbed outside again. Narrator: if you believe no one should be judged by appearances, type "respect" in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Maxwell lifted a cup he hadn't ordered. "Nice place," he said. "Shame when quiet towns forget who keeps them safe." The bell above the cafe door chimed twice in quick rhythm. 2 men entered, suits pressed, smiles too measured. Their umbrellas dripped politely in the corner, but Sage noticed what no one else did: the bulge of shoulder holsters beneath tailored jackets, the synchronized pause as they swept the room, and the way they sat with sight lines clear to all exits. "Morning," she greeted, coffee pot balanced, steady. "Coffee's fine," the taller one said. His accent carried East Coast polish. Virginia, maybe. Sage poured. Neither touched their cups. "You folks passing through?" she asked. "Looking for history," the shorter replied, fingers tapping once on the table. "Stories about people who traveled far before settling here. Coded language, fishing." She kept her smile. "Mountains draw private souls," she said lightly. "Hikers, veterans, folks wanting quiet." At booth 3, Sheriff Marcus Reed, the town's sheriff, no relation, watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. He didn't know. He couldn't. 8 years of camouflage had buried Sage's military life beneath diner grease and polite half-smiles. The men left a 20 for untouched coffee and stepped outside. Through the window, Sage saw them slide into a gray sedan parked perfect for surveillance. Engines murmured, radios hissed, recon complete. Simone Jefferson emerged from the kitchen, flour on her apron. "Strange fellas," she muttered. "Didn't drink a drop." "Storm nerves," Sage replied smoothly, but her pulse drummed like rotor blades. At 7:45 the next morning, it escalated. 3 black SUVs rolled down Main Street in convoy formation. This time, no attempt at disguise. Government plates glared in the drizzle. They blocked escape routes, doors opening in unison. Sage's hand brushed the Purple Heart in her apron. Every instinct screamed, "Activate protocols." Instead, she forced herself steady, filling Sheriff Marcus's mug as though nothing was wrong. "Tourists don't travel in convoy," Marcus observed quietly. The first figure through the door silenced the cafe. Broad shoulders, calm eyes, presence that bent the air. Commander Winston Spencer. Sage's breath caught. She'd trusted that posture once, in places where daylight never reached. He scanned the room, voice smooth. "Heard this cafe serves the best breakfast in the county." Conversations died. Coffee spoons froze. Simone pushed forward with forced cheer. "Sage, get these gentlemen seated." Sage walked measured steps, coffee pot in hand. Spencer's eyes locked, recognition sparking. He didn't flinch, neither did she. "We're not here for eggs and toast," he said quietly. "We need to talk. National security." The words detonated. Marcus's chair scraped as he stood, hand near his sidearm. "In my town, you'll explain yourselves." Spencer produced credentials. Naval Special Warfare Command. Urgent military business. Marcus scowled. "Doesn't give you jurisdiction here." Spencer's team subtly shifted, cutting escape paths without alarming civilians. Sage recognized the choreography. SEALs. Her people. Then came the strike. "We're looking for someone once called Shadow, a specialist in impossible extractions. Officially KIA, Kandahar 2007. Unofficially, maybe she's been pouring coffee here." The cafe froze. Simone's apron sagged in her hands. Marcus barked, "That's enough! She's a waitress, not your ghost." Sage set the coffee pot down with deliberate calm. The mask slipped, posture sharpened, gaze leveled, voice low. "They're not wrong." Whispers rippled. Simone whispered, "Sage, what are they saying?" "My name isn't Sage Whitmore. That identity was created after Iron Dagger. I was Chief Petty Officer, Navy SEAL, call sign Shadow." The truth sucked air from the room. Customers shrank back, forks clattered, rain hammered glass. Spencer leaned forward. "Then you know why we're here?" "Admiral Reginald Maxwell is selling U.S. weapons to hostile networks. Operators tied to Iron Dagger are being eliminated. Your name is on the list." Sage's stomach nodded. Maxwell hadn't just found her, he was hunting all survivors. And somewhere, her partner from Kandahar, the one left in smoke, was alive, or bait. Engines roared outside, helicopters now. Simone whispered, "Are we in danger?" "Yes," Sage answered, voice steel. "Everyone is." In 12 minutes, Pine Valley would become a battlefield. The storm gathered over Pine Valley, thunder stacking like distant artillery. Inside the cafe, every civilian heartbeat sounded too loud. Commander Spencer's eyes never left Sage. "Extraction now," one of his men urged. "Helos inbound." Sage shook her head. "Not yet. I have gear 200 yards behind this cafe. Without it, we don't survive the hour." Spencer frowned, but recognition flickered. He'd heard the legend. Shadow never moved unprepared. They sprinted through back alleys slick with rain. Sage led them into pine stands, past rusted logging trucks, down a narrow path. At her cabin porch, she kicked a board loose, revealing a biometric latch. The door groaned open to a false living room. Behind the fireplace, a hidden lever clicked. The hearth swung aside, revealing stairs. One of Spencer's men muttered, "Jesus." They descended into a bunker lined with reinforced steel. Racks of HK-416 rifles, encrypted radios, tactical drones, an arsenal disguised for 8 years as quiet exile. A Purple Heart and combat knife lay mounted above a vest stitched with her call sign, Shadow. Sage strapped in with motions muscle memory preserved, rifle across chest, ceramic plates locked, night vision clipped. 2 minutes, she said flatly. Then we move. Spencer circled, awe in his tone. You built this alone? Paranoia keeps you breathing, she answered. Radio static cut the silence. Spencer's comm tech, Torres, hissed. Multiple teams converging, 30-plus operators, ground vehicles, mobile command. Sage pulled up a ruggedized tablet, tapping cached maps. Standard encirclement, they'll herd us north, which means the ranger station's compromised already. Spencer studied her, voice low. Then where? Sage's eyes hardened. Not escape. Counterpunch. They moved out through the storm, Sage in point position. Every tree, ridge, and deer path was wired into her muscle memory. Where civilians saw wilderness, she saw cover, kill zones, extraction lines. 20 minutes in, she halted, fist raised. 2 hostiles patrolled a logging road below. Former military, disciplined, professional. Spencer whispered, "We bypass." "No," Sage replied. "Civilians are hiding in homes right now. If these patrols sweep them, they'll never see tomorrow." Before he could argue, she flowed downslope like smoke. The patrol never saw her coming. Non-lethal strikes, zip ties, radio codes stripped. In under a minute, 2 armed men lay unconscious beneath fir branches. One of Spencer's men whispered, "God Almighty." Spencer corrected him softly. "No, Shadow." Sage rifled their gear, scanning tactical maps. Maxwell's network isn't here to kill. Not yet. They're here to harvest. Torres broke in. Intercept confirms. Civilians being rounded for interrogation. Priority targets include diner staff, sheriff, cafe owner. Sage's jaw set like granite. Simone Jefferson, her employer, her shield these 8 years, was in chains because she offered kindness. Spencer read her face. Personal involvement clouds decisions. Personal involvement keeps towns breathing, Sage snapped back. She keyed the captured radio. "Command, this is Ground Team Alpha. Package secure. Mirage confirmed." Static answered, then a cold voice. "Phase 2 authorized. Execute containment." Sage crushed the radio in her fist. "Maxwell's tightening the noose. Civilians are leverage." Rain slashed the forest. Helicopters swept low, searchlights combing valleys. Vehicles blocked Pine Valley's only paved exits. Sage's hand brushed the Purple Heart again. It burned against her palm like a vow. She turned to Spencer. "We're not escaping. We're hunting." Lightning cracked above, painting her eyes silver. And Maxwell's about to remember why Shadow was sent where everyone else failed. The forest howled with rotor wash as helicopters scissored through the rain. Sage drove the team deeper into cover, steps silent, rifle steady. Every nerve was tuned to battlefield rhythm. Inhale, exhale, move. They reached a ridge overlooking Pine Valley. Below, headlights carved cruel arcs across the town. Dozens of civilians, Simone Jefferson among them, were herded into the community center at gunpoint. Guards ringed the building, weapons slung, radios clipped. Torres swore. "They're prepping interrogation staging." Sage studied the scene. 12 guards outside, probably 12 more inside. Weakest point is the kitchen door. Blind spot from streetlights. "Spencer, you hit the front." "I go inside alone." "Absolutely not," Spencer snapped. "You'll make noise. That's the point. While they're staring at you, I dismantle them from behind." His eyes narrowed, but he nodded. 2 minutes max. Then we breach. Rain lashed harder, drumming rooftops. Sage ghosted downhill, hugging shadows until the kitchen door loomed. She slipped a knife under the latch, one twist, one click, and she was inside. The air reeked of wet boots and fear. Civilians tied to chairs trembled beneath flickering fluorescence. Simone's chin lifted defiantly, even with wrists bound. Beside her, Sheriff Marcus Reed strained against cuffs, rage simmering. A guard leaned close to Simone. "Tell us about your waitress." "She makes better pancakes than you ever will," Simone spat. The guard raised a fist. Sage's arm wrapped his throat before the blow landed. Silent choke, body down. She caught his rifle before it clattered. "Shadow," Marcus whispered in disbelief. She gave the briefest nod. Then her knife flashed, zip ties severed, civilians freed one by one. Gunfire thundered outside, Spencer's diversion in full roar. Guards inside scrambled toward windows, backs exposed. Sage struck like a storm. 3 down with suppressed shots, 2 more felled by strikes that broke bone before sound. In 90 seconds, the room fell silent except for civilians gasping. Simone gripped her arm. "You're not who you said." "I'm exactly who I needed to be," Sage answered. The last guard stumbled from a side hall. His radio screeched, "Command! Package sighted! Shadow active!" Sage dropped him with a single shot. Then she keyed the channel herself, voice cold. "Admiral Maxwell, you wanted proof. Shadow's alive, and she's coming." Static snapped. Then his voice smug. "You've only delayed the inevitable. My buyers await offshore. Weapons, intel, lives, they're already sold." Sage's grip whitened on her rifle. "Not while I'm breathing." Outside, Spencer burst through with his team, weapons smoking. "Extraction now!" But Sage shook her head. "Maxwell's operation ends at the source. That yacht. If he sails tonight, 43 operators die tomorrow." Spencer's jaw clenched. "You can't assault a fortress at sea with a handful." "You don't," Sage said, eyes glinting. "You infiltrate from where no one's stupid enough to try." Lightning cracked over Pine Valley. In its flash, Shadow stood revealed, combat vest soaked, scars exposed, eyes burning with the cold fire of purpose. For 8 years, Sage Whitmore poured coffee. Tonight, Shadow hunted again. The storm slackened into a long, low swell, the Pacific rolling like muscle under skin. 50 yards off a floating palace, a repurposed fishing trawler idled in blackout. Commander Winston Spencer adjusted his headset, studying a thermal overlay of a 300-foot yacht, whose silhouette looked less like pleasure and more like a weapons lab wrapped in champagne. 40+ aboard, Torres whispered. Automated CIWS, counter-drone nodes, encrypted jammers, internal patrols on 3-minute loops. "Boarding suicide," Williams said. Sage Whitmore cinched her rebreather harness until the webbing bit. "That's why they won't watch for it." She tapped the Purple Heart in her chest pocket, a small coin of metal that felt heavier than ceramic armor. "They're scanning sky and radar. No one stares into the dark." Spencer's voice went softer than the sea. "Shadow, you don't owe us this." Sage slid on her mask. "I owe Pine Valley, and I owe the people Maxwell sold." She checked the slim cable of magnetic clamps and the pouch of shaped charges the size of candy bars. "Maintain distance. Create noise only if I signal." A beat. "If it goes bad, don't come after me. Burn their network." She tipped backward and vanished. The ocean was cold enough to steal breath if breath weren't already rationed. She knifed through chop, muscles remembering a cadence from lives she hadn't admitted to living. The yacht's hull rose in stages, a black wall, then a city. She found the seam she'd bet on. A tender bay, sensor grid biased for boats, not bodies. Clamps clicked, fingers numbed, then obeyed. She bypassed a pressure lock with a pencil-thin charge, timing it to the heave of the swell. A sigh of water. A mouth opened. Shadow slid inside. The belly of the ship smelled of oil and lemon disinfectant. Her world narrowed. Sightlines, angles, habits. Up one ladder, across a maintenance trench, pause at a junction. She counted boots by sound, then moved when silence fell between steps. The jammers fuzzed her earpiece but couldn't erase instinct. She eased a hatch and peered into a corridor powder white and money clean. Laughter bled from ahead, expensive, multilingual, careless. Sage glued herself into a shadow while 2 men in suits strode past, their talk a mix of Mandarin and price points. She ghosted behind them, riding their wake to a service stair that bled heat and cigar smoke. The conference deck unfolded like a theater. Velvet and chrome, a chandelier shivering under the ship's constant respiration. At the far end, Admiral Reginald Maxwell, impeccable as a confession rehearsed too long. His hands bracketed a table lit by monitors that marched dossiers past eyes that had purchased revolutions. On screen, names, faces, covers, routines. 43 American special operators once buried under protective identities. The cursor perched on one tile longer than the rest. Shadow, KIA, 2007. While a second window scrolled Pine Valley Street images with a digital laziness that made Sage's jaw clench. And at the table's end sat a man tied to a chair, head lifted with the stubborn pride of someone who'd broken before and refused to stay broken. Not Sheriff Marcus Reed. That man was home, guarding civilians. This was Felix Langston, her Kandahar partner, the one the smoke had swallowed when Iron Dagger collapsed a safe house into a tomb. Scar tissue mapped his face. His eyes were clear, alive, leveraged as proof of product. Maxwell tapped the screen and smiled at his buyers. "You're not acquiring rumors," he purred. "You're acquiring ghosts with serial numbers, each identity validated, each location verifiable, each asset transferable, for the right price." Sage's heartbeat throttled down into the old predatory cadence. She lifted a pair of flashbangs, whispered into her throat mic out of habit even if no one could hear. "Package visual. Commencing disruption." Her voice hummed through the HVAC, riding the cool breath of the ship to the crown of the room. "You forgot one asset, Admiral," she said, her tone dry as bone. "The one you failed to kill." Heads lifted. Maxwell's gaze tracked the vents, boredom curdling into interest. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said lightly, "a demonstration." Light and thunder swallowed the room. The chandelier shattered into a rain of glass. Shadow dropped through smoke like a verdict. She moved as if gravity had rules she'd negotiated away. 2 controlled shots to the speakers on the credenza, chopping the room's nerve. A third into the projector, splashing darkness across the buyer's wall of sins. A guard lunged, too slow. She rolled past, took his knee, borrowed his rifle for exactly 1 breath, then returned it to him in pieces. Contact left. She whispered to no one. Habit wrapped in muscle. "Shadow," Felix rasped around the cloth at his mouth. "Stay down," she said, cutting zip ties with a flick that nicked her glove. 30 seconds. She meant it like a promise. Maxwell recovered fast. Professionals always do. He produced a sidearm like a magician, palming a soap bubble, and moved for a hidden exit behind a wall panel Sage had already jammed with a wedge of carbon. "Going somewhere, Admiral?" She put 3 rounds into the bulkhead next to his ear. He flinched, searching for a world where cause didn't meet effect. "You're supposed to be dead," he said. "Paperwork lies," she answered, knifing the last guard's radio so it died before it screamed. Buyers stampeded toward doors that didn't open. Sage had sealed the main corridors with timed charges that warped frames without venting atmosphere. She steered the chaos, not to kill them all. International prosecution needed throats to wear chains, but to erase options. Felix coughed laughter that had gravel in it. "Took your time." 8 years of coffee," she said, fast fingers at a knot. "You'd be surprised how training carries over." The ship shuddered. Somewhere far below, a pump adjusted to demands it didn't consent to. Sage looked up at Maxwell and saw not rage but calculation. He was buying time. "For what?" he answered with a smile. "Kill me and your proof dies with me." Sage's muzzle didn't waver. "Proof of what?" "The bomb that makes this vessel an anecdote," he said, pleased with himself. "Insurance. Biometric dead man's switch keyed to my vitals. You pull the trigger, half a mile of ocean learns a new word for crater. Your partner, your data, your legend, gone." Felix's gaze cut to Sage. It said, "I know the math." It said, "Choose the mission." It also said, "Don't you dare." She holstered the pistol and moved. Closer, not farther. "You just told me your weakness," she said. "Biometric is a sensor. Sensors read patterns. Patterns can be lied to." She ripped a silk scarf off a toppled chair and wound it around Maxwell's wrist, hard, compressing the radial pulse into a ghost rhythm with her thumb. "Torres!" she murmured into a jammer that hated her. "If you can hear me, prep spoof packet in the blind." Static whispered like the sea wants to be a radio. She didn't need the packet. She needed belief, his. She pulled a slim injector from a vest pocket, snapped a cap with her teeth, and pressed the auto-injector against Maxwell's neck. The plunger hissed. His pupils blew wide. "Vasovagal tilt," she said conversationally, easing him into a controlled slump while her fingers kept the scarf's pressure faking a pulse signature. "You don't die. You just dream while your toy thinks you're boring." He fought the black with anger alone. "You can't hold that rhythm," he slurred. "I only need long enough to find your fail-safe," she said. To Felix, "Server rack?" He jerked his chin toward a glass closet with blue LEDs and arrogance. Sage yanked the door, killed the lock with a pry bar, and slid a drive sled into a pouch. "Primary intel cloned." She tore through cabling with a surgeon's disdain until she found a fist-sized control block with a hazard glyph the manufacturer hoped no one ever touched. She connected a bypass harness and bled the biometric chain into a loop that told the ship a bedtime story about steady vitals. "Sleep, monster," she whispered to the logic board. "Dream of compliance." The emergency lighting shifted from predatory amber to a more embarrassed white. Somewhere below, the ship's heart kept beating without waiting for Maxwell's permission. Sage thumbed her mic once more, for habit, for hope. "Spencer, if you copy, window opens in 3. Hit their fastboats. I'm blinding their eyes." She climbed to the external comms blister and slapped 2 shaped charges into the panel seams. "Fire in the hole." The blast coughed light into the sky. Antennas wilted. The jammers hiccuped one last curse and died. On the horizon, 3 low shapes surged into being, Coast Guard cutters riding their own thunder. Closer, a swarm of skiffs that had been creeping toward the yacht found themselves under the attention of a nation's law. Maxwell groaned back to awareness. "This isn't over." "It is for you," Sage said. She zip-tied him to a chair whose designer never imagined nylon. "For the rest, the courts will enjoy the paperwork." Felix flexed his wrists, pain and relief fighting for territory on his face. "You always did make entrances." "Exits are my specialty," she said. "Let's make one." She armed a series of surgical charges along the engine room access, timed to amputate propulsion without sinking the evidence. The ship jerked like something large had just remembered gravity. Buyers screamed again, this time in a language shared by all currencies: fear. Sage hustled Felix toward a lifeboat bay as fire control systems coughed white breath along a corridor. She paused, looked back at Maxwell. For a moment, the room held 2 kinds of silence, the sort that follows violence and the sort that precedes a life being measured. She chose the living kind. "Pine Valley says hi," she said, and swung the hatch shut. The sun clawed past the horizon, dragging a hard red line across steel and spray. Sirens stacked in harmonies as Coast Guard cutters pinned the yacht like a beetle meant for labeling. Fast boats bobbed under floodlights. Men who had sold maps to the dark now blinked into a future with bars. Felix Langston stood on a cutter's deck wrapped in a blanket he didn't need. "You really learned to pour coffee?" Sage smiled with the part of her face that remembered warm mornings. "Turns out tempo is everything. Count the cups, count the exits." Commander Spencer joined them, helmet under one arm, salt drying white on his jaw. "Shadow, Sage, you didn't just save operators. You blocked a blueprint for breaking our people." He glanced at the drive sled in her hand. "Chain of custody's ready." She handed the evidence over. 43 names need protection and new covers before sunset. "They'll have them," Spencer said. "And Maxwell?" "Alive," she answered. "Let the law explain consequences." A gull shrieked above them. Foam slapped steel. The ocean smelled like electricity and endings. Sage looked west, then back toward an invisible town ringed by pines. She could hear Simone Jefferson laughing at the griddle, could see Sheriff Marcus Reed. Just Marcus, just a good man, standing by the door with black coffee and a question he finally deserved answers to. I'm going home, she said. Not to hide, to choose. Felix squeezed her shoulder. Shadow's part of you. So is Sage, she said. Today they're the same person. Narrator. Thank you to everyone who typed respect. Your support honors quiet service and the people who live it every day. If you believe more people need to hear stories like Sage Whitmore's, please share this video and subscribe for more tales of dignity. The cutter turned toward shore. In the wake, a floating palace coughed smoke and surrender. Ahead, a cafe door would chime. A tray would rattle. And the most dangerous woman in Pine Valley would pour coffee like a promise kept.